Hello everyone and welcome to Now You're Playing with Power, a Nintendo podcast. My name is NBZ and we're here at episode 26. I'm joined, of course, as always, by my co-host, my nemesis. Maybe sometimes my friend. I don't know. His name's Bally. What's up, Bally?
Good evening, NBZ. I think this is the first time we've both been in Edinburgh while recording this podcast.
I don't think that's true. I'm
Really?
pretty sure that has happened a lot of times
in
in the past, but we are just not going to.
But we're miles apart. Is this thing?
Yeah, it's not that many. Not that many.
I could totally run to your house right now and just like.
Totally, you wouldn't get here for another probably like 40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it'd probably take me about 30, 40 minutes.
All right. Let's not big ourselves up here, Bally. Anyway, let's get on with the show. How about it? Bally, what are we going to be talking about today?
As usual, we've got what we've been playing, we've got your emails, and then for our third segment, it returns.
Da-da-da-da!
It is the Jukebox,
Yeah.
and this time, NBZ, you're going to be put to the test.
Oh no, I'm afraid now. Bally showed up last time with 5 out of 5 on the Jukebox, so I was impressed.
I've stepped up the difficulty this time.
Oh,
There's
no.
not going to be any 5 out of 5s.
Uh-oh,
No
I'm scared.
chance. But anyway.
Well, I hope you guys look forward to that. I hope you guys will play along at home. But yeah, we're gonna kick things off with the stuff we have been playing recently. And Bally, I hear that you have dived? Yeah, dived. Right, that's the right word. Dove into a couple of oceans recently.
Yeah, so do you remember when we were growing up and we did English at school?
Yeah, I remember English. That was the subject.
Do you remember the number one rule for English exams? Because maybe we should brief our audience and say that in our English exams, when we were younger, you always had to write a story.
Okay.
So do you remember the number one rule when we were writing these stories?
Don't make the ending he woke up and it was all a dream.
Correct. And what happens in Link's Awakening? Like,
well, it's in the
it's
title,
all
isn't
a
it?
dream.
It's in the title.
It is in the title, and yeah, you don't know whose dream it is necessarily. Although, I mean, it's sort of your dream and the fish's dream together.
Anyway, we probably should introduce this game, right?
Yeah.
So you've been playing Link's Awakening.
I have been playing Link's Awakening, and really enjoyed it. This is a really, really, really weird Zelda, like crazy. There's Kirby, there's Mario, there's Luigi, there's Goombas, there's piranha plants.
Wait, Kirby's in this game as well?
Kirby is not only in this game, he is an enemy in this game.
What the fuck is going on? This is pretty much fucking Hyrule Warriors down here.
There are like these Kirby blobs that suck you up in one of these dungeons, and they're a pretty decent enemy. They're quite cool. And yeah, the chain chomps in this game are good guys, and you actually use a chain chomp at one point to get to the second dungeon, which is pretty exciting, and you get to walk around with it as it kills off moblins next to you, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
I think that the dungeons, and there's full 8 of them in this game, they're one area that really stands out. They were really hard, but they were never unfair. Okay, maybe they were unfair at one particular point that we were just talking about before. But I'm going to bring up that point right now.
Sure. Go ahead and tell everyone your frustrations and woes.
There, in the final dungeon of the game, the 8th dungeon, the mini-boss has a certain move. And this certain move, that if you get hit by it, will send you back to the start of the dungeon. Now, obviously, you've unlocked the keys, you've unlocked the doors, whatever, so you could still like mainline it straight back to him. But it would take you like a good few minutes, and I just have to say thank God for save states, because like I kept getting hit back to the beginning with this mini boss, and it would not let up. It was just that I just don't understand the design. And like you were talking about Wario Land 2 a
Right.
few weeks ago, and you mentioned there's a mechanic where the boss was it that hits you back.
Well,
Um,
basically, they don't kill you because there's no health in that game, so
mm.
they knock you off the screen, and you have to go back around and start again from the very beginning, and it is just annoying. It's
Yeah.
not a fun mechanic. It really isn't.
So I just don't understand that mechanic at all. It's just horrible. And
But anyway, from what it sounds like, it's a very similar experience to what I had with Link to the Past, is that the game is definitely a much more challenging Zelda than you are used to, right? And so having the aid of save states really makes it playable in this day and age, and able to go back to it, and it really just allows us to enjoy the experience,
yeah,
right? So
absolutely. And save states are the best idea, and it's a real luxury just to say. I mean, you're ultimately playing the same experience. We've said that before on the podcast, and they're just a really great idea. And I did use them quite a bit. I wouldn't say I abused them to the full, but I certainly abused them to the full on certain enemies, such as this one, and certain bosses that I was really struggling with. And it just saved me a lot of time, really. I was still defeating the same bosses, but just saved me a ton of time. Um,
so about the world, right? The overworld.
yes.
How's it all set up? Is it quite large? You know, is it what kind of areas are you going to?
So here's the thing. I heard that Link's Awakening, in fact, originally was meant to be a Game Boy port of um, Link to the Past.
Wow, really?
And
Interesting.
you can tell that it was based on the design and the trees and certain aspects, the grass, stuff like that. It all looks identical to Link to the Past. The world does feel really quite big, actually. It's surprising as well, and it unlocks very periodically like a 2D Zelda would. Um, well, actually, coming to think of it, I think Link Between Worlds was far more open, obviously, because you can visit any dungeon in any order. This feels
Right.
much more like a Metroid game in that you unlock this item, it gets you here, unlock another item, gets you to this area of the
And
world.
it's interesting that you say the world is quite large because when you're thinking about the kind of moment-to-moment gameplay, it's all kind of locked to like small screens, right? Because you're going from screen to screen, so it's kind of thinking about the world in tiles and in squares.
Yeah,
Do you think that kind of contrasts with the fact that it actually has a lot of areas to go to, and you're in these really small places as you
yeah,
move
it's
about?
just it makes it's the clever level design makes it feel bigger, more so than the genuine size or the size of your individual screen that you're looking at, because
Right.
it's the never-ending mazes that you have to work out the right way to go, or certain enemies that send you back to areas, but not in the same way that I was talking about the mini boss, but like sort of the those Zelda puzzles that have endless routes. There's a few of those in this game which are quite clever, and some really cool puzzles just in the regular world. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, when I played Link to the Past, I think the puzzles were okay. I didn't think they stood out that much. A lot of it was kind of defeat all the enemies in the room to get a key, or push blocks and stuff. Is there a lot of variety there?
I was gonna say, if that's the case with A Link to the Past, then I think this game is a genuine step up from that. I
Oh
think
wow,
some of the
okay.
puzzles and some of the things they've done in this game are really clever, and it's the game is so good. And this game originally came out in 1993 and was remade in 98, I think, for the Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was playing the Game Boy Color version, although I don't think they added a ton more stuff, just a couple of things, and obviously color. But there's some really nice things in this game. For example, in the overworld, there are these telephone houses, and any time in the game, you can go into a telephone house and you call like the guy you meet in your hometown, and he'll give you a little bit of advice of what you should be doing next, wherever you are in the game. And whatever he tells you to do on the phone always helps you with the mainline story. It's always like suggesting, oh, perhaps you could try moving a certain something on this certain area, and you think, okay, I'll go do that, and then you do that, and it unfolds the game. And likewise, in dungeons, they have owl statues. So there's an owl in this game. I think it's the same one as Ocarina, although I'm not sure. And he
I'm pretty sure it is Kabora Gabora, whatever his name is.
Horror. So
Kabora Gabora.
he's helping you out through the whole game, but there are replicas of him or these statues inside all the dungeons. And there's
Kind of
maybe
reminds me of
about
Majora's Mask. That's how you save in that game, is owl
Oh,
statues.
really?
Yeah.
So these statues are lacking beaks. And basically, in the same way in any other Zelda, you need to pick up a map and a compass. In this game, you pick up a map, a compass, and then also a stone beak. And what you do with the stone beak is you walk up to one of these owl statues, and it gives you a hint for the dungeon. And
wow,
it's
interesting.
almost always sort of riddles. For example, one of them was, you must defeat an enemy from on high. And you're thinking, I have to be higher up than the enemy to defeat it. And then later in the dungeon, there's a section where it gives you the option of fighting the enemy on the same level as them. But if you keep killing them on that level, it does nothing. You have to, like it said, defeat them from up high, which is it's like a really cool little puzzle. And these owl statues are, like I said, throughout the whole game, and just really, really helped to like overcoming stuff. And while like I said, I did have to use a guide quite often, I was going through like really long periods of this game without using a guide at all, and genuinely working out some really intricate puzzles.
Interesting. I was wondering about, the collectible aspect here, because you say, in the dungeons you have this extra thing with the stone beak. I seem to recall something about shells,
Yes,
right?
shells. So, because I was using a guide at some parts, it revealed that if you collect, I think it's 21, 22 shells, you get a level 2 sword.
Yeah.
And yeah, the level 2 sword defeats enemies twice as quick as level 1 sword. I never went out of my way to follow a guide and work out how to get shells. I just got a few on the way, and I think by the end of the game I had about 17. So
Okay.
I was pretty close to the level 2 sword, but I mean, obviously, the earlier you get it in the game, the more it helps you with the final.
Do you think it would have saved you some maybe frustration on bosses or enemies had you gone out of your way to do that, or did you get through it okay?
Yes and no. So
All right.
basically, one side quest that you can do in the game that I did do, because it's like the trading route. What do you call it? A trade table? It's got a trading tree, basically.
Sure.
So you're trading an item for another item, improving that item, and then at the very top, it becomes a boomerang. And in this game, more so than any other Zelda game I've ever played, the boomerang is incredibly overpowered. There are so many enemies later on in the game where a single shot with a boomerang will take it out, when before they were completely,
Wait, so it's not just stunning them, it's killing them?
it's killing them.
Wow.
So, for example, there is an enemy, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a face, it's like a spark. Is that what they call it? I can't remember. But it moves around the sides of the room. And before you get the boomerang, it's invincible. But when you do get the boomerang, it dies in one hit from a boomerang. And on top of that, when it dies, it gives you a fairy.
What the
So
fuck?
it will cover you right back up. I think fairies recover 6 or 8 hearts in this game.
Yeah.
And yeah, by the time I finished the game, that was definitely my favorite enemy. They were basically smiling at me by the end of the dungeon.
You're right, because they're just giving you all the goodness back. I mean, on the point of the boomerang, I know that, the Game Boy was very limited hardware in terms of button inputs, right? You only have the D-pad and the A and B buttons. So, of course, this game has a lot of, being a Zelda game, you're going to have a lot of items. So the inventory management is probably one of those things that gets the most flack in Link's Awakening, because you can only have your sword equipped to the A button and then a secondary thing equipped to the B button. Or probably can you take your sword away from the A button? Is that possible?
No.
No. So
You have,
the only way to do it is
yes.
to cycle through the menu to change up your item every single time you need to use a different thing, right? On B.
Yes. It is like, you don't always have to have your sword equipped. You can have any 2 items equipped, but
Okay.
oh my god, do you have to swap those items a lot.
Yes.
For example, a really big improvement that they made for games such as Link Between Worlds or any 2D Zelda after Link's Awakening, I think Oracle Games After, I don't know what they have.
Yeah,
actually. I've
they
not played
are
them.
after, but I have no idea.
But for example, the power bracelet. You have to equip the power bracelet.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Do you get the power bracelet in Link to the Past?
Yeah, but it's just it's something that's automatically on your person.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so strange, because this game came out after Link
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
Past. And
Strange.
anyway, so like the power bracelet, so anytime you want to lift up a rock or a pot or
I mean, I can just imagine scenarios where you're just like, there's a rock, then after it there's a pit which you need the rock's feather to jump over, then there's
Yep,
like,
that is
an enemy to use a
exactly.
boomerang on, then an enemy to use it, and you're just in the menu half the time, so...
Yep. And it's the exact feeling of when you you open the fridge, and then you open the fridge and you think, I don't even know why I was opening the fridge.
Right.
Like, what am I getting the fridge for?
What do I need?
You open your start menu, you're like, oh, what am I even getting again? Then you have to unpause, realize what you want, pause again, equip it, and then unpause, and it's pretty tedious.
Do you think that was at all detrimental to the overall experience, or was it okay? Could you deal with it?
I think it is detrimental, but I totally give Nintendo credit that there's really not much other option. There's not even an L or an R button on the original Game Boy. There's nothing else they could have done, in my opinion. So it's a shame, but hey, it works. It's a bit frustrating, but the game makes up for it completely.
Right. It's like, what else are you gonna do? So
exactly. You mentioned the rock's feather.
yes.
I love this item. You get it really on in the game. I think it's the first dungeon, and for anyone who doesn't know, this is the ability to jump in Link's Awakening.
It's crazy. Zelda game where you can press a button to
Exactly.
jump.
And the best thing is that there's so many 2D sections in the dungeons of this game.
Yeah.
There's so many 2D areas that link up underground, basically. And these 2D areas don't appear on the map. You go down some stairs and then you reappear at some other stairs, and you're all of a sudden teleported across the dungeon effectively. That's one thing, is that the maps, like almost all the dungeons are on a single floor, but
Right.
all the dungeons also have underground sections that are linked via 2D sections that are basically like teleporters. And I think there's only one dungeon that properly has genuine floors. But yeah, the 2D sections are really great. There's like, you're platforming on Goombas, and like the really cool thing about Goombas is if you jump on top of them, you get a heart. If you just slash them with your sword, you get nothing.
So it encourages you to be using the rock's feather and kind of...
You get a little reward for being Mario.
Right, for role-playing, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And those 2D sections are so great, and like by the end of the game, they really get really experimental with them, because you have these ice puzzles, and you unlock the flame rod, and you're melting the ice in certain rows, but you have to basically maintain enough ice that you can platform your way out of the dungeon again.
Sure.
Like it's a really cool little puzzle, and I wish they'd done a bit more of that in that dungeon, because you basically do a couple of ice puzzles at the end. And
It does seem like, with those 2D sections, they're getting a little bit of a callback to Zelda 2, right? Because, they haven't really done anything of that sort since then.
That, other than Zelda 2 and Link's Awakening, I think those genuinely are the only side-on 2D platform elements in any Zelda game ever, as far as I know.
It's crazy.
Like, I'd love for them to bring it back and hype it up a bit.
I mean, can you imagine like a Metroid Zero Mission style remake of something like Zelda 2, and where they kind of
add
redefine
some stealth.
it?
I think it could really work. But yeah, I absolutely love this game. It obviously, like I said, does have its flaws. I've discovered my favorite Zelda song of all time, which is now Tal Tal Heights.
Yeah, it's a really great song.
A really great theme tune. Well, it's not the theme tune. It's sort of, I guess it is the theme tune of this game, because this is the tune that plays when you're in the Tal Tal mountain range, which is beside where you find the windfish.
Yeah.
Like I said, 8 dungeons, so much gameplay time. This game took me 19 and a half hours.
Wow, that's much longer than I took with Link to the Past.
Yeah, and for like a Game Boy game, that is just incredible. And I mean, I spent a lot of those hours wandering around trying to work out what I was going to do without a guide. For example, I played a lot on the plane where there was no internet, and I had to work out what to do next.
Oh man, you can't survive without internet, I'm telling you.
And like, that's the great thing about this game, is you'd be surprised how far you can get without any guides, because of the telephones and, like I said, the owl statues. Both of those really help with this game. And
yeah, almost seems like kind of the pre-super guide, right, for Nintendo.
Yeah, and I mean, waking up is not the best story ever. But hey, if it wasn't a dream, you would have never been able to fight Kirby, or Mario
Sure.
wouldn't have given you something.
Right, the
or,
ridiculous crossovers wouldn't be possible. So
like,
that's cool.
it's a nice get out for the ridiculous crossovers, and for this game, it works. It works supremely well, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
I've been playing a ton of Assassin's Creed 4 as well, but I think I should leave that for another time, as I've talked for quite a bit now. But anyway.
Yeah, no problem.
NBZ.
Assassin's Creed 4 is an ongoing project, shall we say.
Ongoing project.
So,
It
yeah.
will get talked about, don't worry. But anyway.
All right,
what
great.
have you been playing?
So I've been playing a couple of games. Of course, I'm going to talk about the hottest new release, which is Bayonetta 2, which I have been enjoying immensely. But before I jump into that, I just want to give a quick mention to another game I've been playing. It's an independent game on Steam. You know, one of them indies that I am so fond of. It's called Dust: An Elysian Tale. And I believe it recently came out on PlayStation 4 and Vita, so some people might be playing it right now because it's kind of relevant at the moment, so I kind of jumped into it because that was happening. Some people were talking about it. I thought, you know what, I've had this sitting here for like the last year, as with the majority of my Steam games. I need to crack into it. First of all, the thing that strikes me the most is this game was made by one man, and it is one of the most gorgeous, incredibly well-made games on Steam. It is insane that one guy did the entire mechanics, artwork, music, like pretty much everything, aside from the voice acting, which of course has to be done by multiple people. He did it all on his own, and it's kind of nuts. It's just one of those things where you think, wow. This seems like something like Ubisoft would do. You know, like with Child of Light, it's one of those kind of almost half indie games, side project that, you know, this big companies put effort into. This is made by one man, and yeah, kind of astounds me. But it's essentially a 2D side-scrolling, Metroid-y style, kind of combat-oriented game. A lot of the characters, I mean, all the characters are basically animals with voices. I guess if you want to call them furries, you can, but, you know, whatever, floats your boat.
What's the setting? Are we talking fantasy or modern
world?
Or
yeah, it's fantasy. You kind of basically you wake up, you're this character Dust, and this magical sword comes to you, and it starts talking to you. You're like, oh great, talking sword with a guy who is actually like a dog who's talking. So it is very out there. It's very out there. And yeah, you're basically you know, you have a kind of central hub area, which is a town, and you can get quests from there. And I actually really like the way the quests are implemented into this game, because they really do feel like they make an impact on the world and the story, because there are quite, you know, limited number of characters. Like, it's not an expansive cast, so you'll really get to know the different people around town. And I guess though the voice acting can be kind of cheesy at the beginning, I really started to get into it and really appreciate a lot of what it was doing. And so, yeah, I found that was a really cool aspect of it. But you're going from area to area and just defeating enemies with this combat system that is really free-flowing and kind of difficult to get a grasp on. I wasn't playing on a harder difficulty, but it was still challenging me quite a lot. And, you know, enemies will dodge out the way, and you're kind of, you know, juggling people in the air. I guess it serves as a kind of nice comparison to something like Bayonetta that I'm about to talk about, because though it's not as crazy and ridiculous, it still has that satisfying feeling of pulling off combos and getting like hits in a row and you know, building up a meter and being able to just destroy people in your way. Yeah, it's really cool. It's just a really, really awesome experience.
And did you manage to conquer the final boss?
Not yet. I do want to quickly mention that, because it is something that is burning through my
soul.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of dampening my experience a little bit of the game. The final boss is, in my opinion, kind of bullshit. It's just...
Does it throw you back
slog.
to the start of the dungeon?
Yeah, basically it does. No, it's just a bit of a slog, you know. It's brutal, and I haven't beaten it yet. I will do. I'll go back and do it, but I'm basically at the end of the game. I've experienced most of it, and it's a very charming, very really cool experience. I'd say the one thing is that the platforming can get a little difficult, because the way the game is drawn, it's very stylized and artsy, and so knowing when you can jump on platforms, and even, the abilities that you get to jump on platforms. You don't get the double jump until like the end of the game, which like makes no sense whatsoever, but it's kind of weird, the way that they dole out abilities, but it was there in the end. It was there in the end. So anyway, yeah, Dust and Elysian Tale, it's a really cool game. You should check it out. But of course, we've got to talk about the game of the moment, the hot new Nintendo product. It is Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U. Now, before maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I literally had zero interest in Bayonetta 2. I was like, it's been touted for a while. I know a lot of people are going to like it, but it probably won't sell too well. And, I don't know how the reviews will do. It might do okay. And then the demo came along. And the demo blew my fucking mind. It was one of the most satisfying, fun things I have played in forever. And I just, like, there and then I was like, wow, that was 15 minutes and I am now sold on a game I literally had no care for before. And yeah, I bought it and I went and pre-ordered it on Amazon. And I haven't played, the whole thing yet. I'm maybe 40% through. I'm on chapter 8 right now. And so far, it's just proved that it is totally worth the incredible scores that it's getting, and just, it's crazy. It is one of the most ridiculous things I have ever played, and it is so fun for it. The combat is one of the most satisfying things I have ever dug into. So I think it's really a combination of the feedback in the controller with the rumble, the music that goes on in the background, the sounds and the sound design of the hits, and just the on-screen action of everything going ridiculously turned up to 11 stupid. It's bonkers, and it just creates this environment that means I'm like, I just don't want to stop doing this. It may be repetitive in other games. Beat 'em ups are not really my thing. I know they're not your thing either, Bally. Beat 'em ups are generally, aside from, good old Jackie Chan on Game Boy Advance, right? It's our favorite.
Well, that's going back away, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's just so fun to do that it never gets dull, and I think it really lends to the fact that every level is so different and they're always throwing you into ridiculous situations that it doesn't tire, and I'm in love. It's amazing.
I completely see where you're coming from with the thing, and I should say I played the demo earlier today, and yeah, I've never really played a beat 'em up, and I visually, musically, I think the whole package worked really well, but I just didn't have the same hook that you had, especially after your initial first playthrough of the demo. I don't know why now, it may be that I was just really bad at the game, and it does sound like I am, because I died 3 times just
in the demo. You died 3 times.
Demo, and I could feel myself not really being able to coordinate all the combos very well, and like I was having fun, but I wasn't like blown away in the same way you were. But it just felt like this wasn't my type of game. But I still appreciate why it's getting such rave reviews and is like going to be nominated for Game of the Year by loads of magazines and websites. So yeah. I don't know.
It is just, it's one of those things where I was sitting there, or I basically had hooked up my Wii U to my computer monitor because I wanted to see it on a bigger screen, which, by the way, was a great idea because it looks fantastic. But
you're getting in all the P's.
Yeah, you got to get on the P's. Come on, man, it's all about the P's. By the way, which actually is a big thing here, it runs 1080p and at a pretty smooth 60, which I think contributes a huge amount, because that does impact the gameplay, and it makes it so much smoother than if it was running like dog shit. Apparently, I actually own the original Bayonetta on PS3, and apparently the frame rate on that game on the PS3 version is horrible, and it tanks really badly in places. So I'm kind of glad that I just didn't touch that, because it probably would have soured my impression of the series as a whole. But here it's flawless. It is just completely smooth, and it's incredible. So I was saying, like, there are levels where it's just a boss battle, but when you say boss battle, it's not something that's very pedestrian. I mean, you're flying through the fucking air as a mountain is coming towards you, and this giant, ridiculous dragon is like zooming around you, and the camera is panning, and the music is booming, and everything is just turned up to just the stupidest amount of ridiculousness in history. And I am so happy that I did not spend my money on Hyrule Warriors and saved it for this instead. Because let me tell you, Zelda fan service is one thing, but a fucking good game is another. And I would take that over fan service any day, no matter what. It's just so good. I'm running out of superlatives right now because
I was gonna maybe this question I'm about to ask you is far too industry related, but do you see this as something that will sell quite a few Wii U's? Like, is this the game that's gonna be, it's a Wii U exclusive? There's obviously so much controversy around that with so many PS3 and owners saying, "Oh, and then how on earth could this game not come out on PS4? It's just ridiculous." And obviously, like we've said before in the podcast, Nintendo were the only ones willing to fund the project.
Right.
Do you think this is a key to Nintendo's future?
No. I to be frank, the thing with Bayonetta is it is going to sell to a very small audience, and despite the fact that it has received rave reviews, and despite the fact that everyone is talking about it right now, you do have to remember, like, the space that we occupy and the echo chamber that we can kind of get tied up in a lot of the time, because, to the general public, Bayonetta 2 means nothing. It's not a big franchise,
Yeah.
It's not well known, it's not something that's going to sell gangbusters. To us in our inner circle of people who appreciate games and talk about them on a deeper level and consume the media about them and always reading websites and videos and all this stuff, of course, people like that are going to be persuaded, and, you may get some people who haven't picked up a Wii U yet going for it just because this game is that good. But in the end, that's a drop in the puddle. That is not going to cause any sort of waves. And it's just, I feel like it's really unfortunate because a lot of outlets, I think it was GameSpot who said this is a modern classic. This will be remembered in years to come as one of the greatest games of all time. And, I can generally feel that is going to occur. It seems like it's on that path. But yeah, in terms of the wider scope, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I am worried that the majority of Wii U owners might be like me in that they're just not that interested in beat 'em ups, or am I just framing it in the wrong way?
I think calling it a beat 'em up is a little reductive, because it's, I don't know, I guess the
An
term
artful beat 'em up.
right. I guess spectacle fighter is a lot of
Yeah,
what
and
people
it's
say.
so narrow-minded for any one of us to kind of put games into these genres,
Right.
because so many of them cross over so much.
Yeah,
so
all the time.
I'm being very harsh to it in that sense. You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some really cool things in the game. There are these challenges where you basically have to do a certain thing. It's like a challenge room across the level. So it does reward exploration quite a bit because you'll find like treasure chests which will have items inside them, and you'll find these challenge areas. Some of them are like defeat all these enemies using one combo. So basically, you have to just not let anyone you have to hit people all in a row. A combo. You know what a combo is? I'm
Yes,
not trying
I
to
know what a
explain a
combo.
fucking combo.
Although I wasn't very good at them.
No. But, you'll get areas where they'll say, do this all in a combo, but it's all flying enemies. So you're going to have to be in the air a lot and try and keep things going. I was using the guns a lot because if you keep that button held down and you're far away from an enemy, it'll keep the combo going. So while you're walking towards them, you can still hold the gun down to keep it going just in case. And,
quite cool.
stuff like that becomes pretty difficult. And another stuff is like you can only deal damage to enemies in witch time. And so witch time is this mechanic where if you dodge at the very last second, everything slows down and you're able to wail on enemies really hard. But one of the challenges is you can only damage them when you're in that state. So you basically are just waiting for them to attack you and then dodging out the way and slamming on buttons. And it really adds this layer of complexity, and I know that there's a lot of difficulty levels, and of course the high level play for Bayonetta people is going to be astounding. I'm never going to reach that that kind of upper echelon, but I'm pretty content with how I've done so far. And it is one of those things where I'm like, I never replay games, but I can totally see myself going back and going through this on normal, because I'm going on the easier difficulty at the moment. I can totally see myself doing that, and especially because a lot of the items are quite expensive. You collect like money in the form of basically Sonic rings. They're called halos, but they're basically Sonic rings. And obviously there's all the Nintendo stuff in this game. There's the the Metroid, the Samus outfit. There's the Daisy and Peach.
That Link outfit with the rupees. Wow.
Right. The Link one. There's a Star Fox one, and I kind of just I want to get those. I think it'll be a lot of fun to just dick around with those and play some more. So yeah, I can't really be any more positive. Honestly, it's just it's been a hell of a ride, and I'm just really excited.
I can't think of the last game that went like from completely outside of your kind of not knowledge. What's the word?
Radar.
Conscious radar of what you want to buy, maybe buy,
Yeah.
or potentially think about buying, and then it's just gone right from there to yep, I'm buying it.
Yep.
To yep, I'm absolutely loving it, and to yep, this is like one of the best games ever, sort of thing. Like I can't remember the last game that's done that with you. Like
I'm not sure there has been. I mean, I guess the last game was Gunman Clive on 3DS, which I had never heard of, and I was listening to RFN, and Johnny Metz is like, "Oh, Gunman Clive, this is a cool game," and he starts talking about it, and then he mentions it's like £2, and I'm like, "All right, I'm just gonna go and buy it right now." And before he'd finished talking about it, I had the game and was playing.
And it's funny you mentioned Johnny Metz, because his attitude to this game is very similar to yours. It was completely off his radar, and he's
right. And it's same with Craig Harris, who was on that show. Is they played the demo, and all of a sudden they were like, "Yeah, I'm getting this game." So it's interesting that's happened to a lot of people, not to you though. So
yeah, I'll play the demo again, but I don't know.
I think you totally need to
appreciate
see
it,
some more of the bombastic stuff that it has to offer, and just see it in motion. But yeah, so far I've been loving it, and yeah, definitely talk a bit more about it probably next time, because I may well have been able to finish it. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. We've been going for a while here talking about these old video games we've been playing. I think we should take a break. We are going to return with some of your listener emails, so do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You awoke me, unleashed the fire in my heart. I will dance and I'll defeat them through the light and the dark. Your mistake was to underestimate my power. Won't let go of the fight till tomorrow's mine. I'll ignite, dancing through the fire around me. I'll never stop. You couldn't hide. Now I'm in the mood for a fight. You won't know what hit you when I spin around with you in my dust. Then bang bang down down again. It's my desire going for the win. Tomorrow is mine. You better run. Don't wait, here I come. No, the fuel in my fire won't run dry. Burns bright, and you better hide. I came for a fight, yeah. Until tomorrow is mine.
And we return once again for the second segment of our show this week. We are, of course, going to be doing some emails that you have sent to us, and you can send in more of those all the time, every day, whenever you have time. Please, that would be nice. To our email address, which is Bally.
NYPPQuestions at gmail.com. We put out the call, and we got some good ones.
Yeah, excellent. We're always needing more though, so don't stop. Keep going. Anyway, Bally, how about you read us the first one?
So the first question is from George. How did myself and MBZ meet?
So I think we may have answered this before on the podcast, but just for the benefit of new listeners and for people who maybe didn't hear that episode or whatever, Bally, how about you take this one?
I think I was 5.
Let's say, yeah, 4 or 5.
I think I might have been 5 and you might have been 4.
Yes.
And
yes.
this was primary 1.
In a prep school in Edinburgh.
In a prep
basically.
school in Edinburgh, and the year must have been 1995 or 6. 6.
90, let's say 96, yeah.
96. And it would have been September.
Yes, yep. It would have been
And
September 96.
it's probably a dark, bleak day.
Dark
at
bleak day
school
in Scotland,
in
no lie.
Edinburgh. And yeah, so that's certainly
Yeah,
that's,
great. Thanks, Riley. Put a nice bow
and
on
that's
that
when
one.
we met. Although I would say we became much closer friends a few years later.
Yeah, I think maybe a couple of years later. So basically, I have known this man since literally I've been 4 years old. So that's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of crazy. Yep. So there you go.
And our next question is from Bob. So I played Metroid Other M a while ago, and I couldn't agree more with your take on how terrible the voice acting and storytelling are. I would rather play the game with mute and subtitles than listen to it again, but the concepts in it were pretty fantastic. Think Ridley's life stages and such. If they were to attempt to redo the game in order to weed out these flaws, do you guys think it would be worth the revisit? I also had a question about what you guys thought of the Chozo ghosts as enemies in Prime. I have heard people complain about them since the Chozo are supposed to be long gone in a game setting like that, and having ghosts in a non-horror game usually starts controversy in general.
Alright, do you want to start the second one, Bally?
Start the second one,
Prime?
sure.
Yeah.
So you're talking more about the Chozo ghosts in terms of their lore and how they fit into the game. I can see that argument. I mean, it didn't bother me at the time at all. Actually, I quite liked it because it made these sort of beings, while they weren't alive, that these beings relate to the stuff that you were reading about throughout the whole game. I personally didn't have a problem with them. I do think that Metroid has incredibly mild horror elements, so I think it's maybe unfair to call it a completely non-horror game.
Oh, totally. Prime certainly has the tension and atmosphere that you may even find in your traditional horror games. So,
in terms of how difficult they were to defeat, they were a right hassle, but they were good fun. But in terms of lore, I quite liked them. So yeah, it didn't have
for me,
problems.
like lore reasons really don't make a huge difference at all. It's a video game, and most of the time I'm there for mechanics. I'm not there for story, so it really wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, I certainly did appreciate the story in Metroid Prime for me, on top of the mechanics. So yeah, I'd have to differ with you on that.
All right. Well, about going back to Metroid Other M and having Nintendo have another crack at it.
I think say tomorrow Miyamoto announces, well, it wouldn't be Miyamoto, it'd be Iwata. And Iwata announces, we're making a brand new Metroid game. I would literally hit my head off the roof, and then the second he said, we're remaking Other M, I would literally want to go run and jump off a cliff. Like, if the announcement of a new Metroid game was a remake of Other M, that'd just be...
Right, that would be really disappointing.
Such a kick in the balls.
But if we take ourselves out of the current climate and context that we find ourselves within, as we have been starved for a good Metroid game for a long time, if they were to just approach this as a straight up HD remake of some sort, and to change things up so that you didn't have to control it with the D-pad, and you made some gamepad implementation that would maybe make the first person things a bit easier, would you be down for playing it at all if it were, taken into a more playable format?
Oh yeah, definitely. As long as it was more than just controller reworkings and stuff like that. It'd have to be completely redo sort of the voice acting and a lot of the level design. And by that time, why not just make a new game,
Right.
Like, I think it would be so much rehashing that maybe even I wouldn't play it, to be honest, because It would have to be literally the difference between Link Between Worlds and Link to the Past or something.
Sure,
it has
sure,
to be
yeah.
that kind of level for me.
Totally.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in playing it again.
You're gonna die in a hole.
I've had my struggle. Look, the struggle is real, and it was real for 4 years, and I don't really want to tread that ground again. But if we get nothing else, if they did that, something, right? I guess.
But please just give us a regular 2D Metroid or another Prime style game, or mix the two of those concepts. Like, don't go back to a broken concept. Right, on to the next question from Nick. Good day from Australia, Bally and NBZ. That almost slipped into an Australian accent right there. I have a question about digital downloads. I think now every major gaming family has incorporated digital downloads, Xbox systems, PlayStation systems, and Nintendo systems. Personally, I have not seen a huge reason for me to purchase console games digitally. It eats away at ISP download limits, usually full price, takes up limited hardware space compared to a case in a drawer or on a shelf. But I do see why handheld devices lend themselves to digital downloads, being able to take your whole game library with you. I wish now that I had bought Smash digitally so that I can have it to play when I'm out along with my current more story-based game of choice. What are your preferences, physical or digital, and for which of your consoles? Have you experienced any issues personally or heard of issues with digital copies on Nintendo systems, lag or slow loading times? Would you recommend that with perhaps the new 3DS I purchase a larger SD card and start my digital collection? Thanks for the entertaining podcast.
Right, Nick. Thanks for the email. Look, man, I gotta get my attempt in an Australian
You were dying
accent.
to get it in there, weren't you?
Gotta try. Okay, a very interesting question about digital. So, Bally, are you all digital? Are you all non-digital? Where do you fall in this kind of purchasing?
I follow whatever's cheaper. And
Yes.
in general, at this moment in time, for us in the UK, hard copies are still much, much cheaper. And I only go digital when I'm forced to in one way or another.
Right, especially in the UK, I think it is a big gap when you, for example, take a look at Bayonetta on the eShop. It is £40. It's $39.99. On Amazon, it is £31.85. That's almost a £10 gap. That's like £8. It's a big one, That's significant. It's not a couple. It's not five. It is larger and is something that you can't really, not pay attention to. You have to be, if you want to get more games, then you have to be thrifty about it, right? And so it makes more sense to go physical here.
I think, for me, the most thrifty way to go about it is to have the ability to do either or. So I definitely have this ability with the Wii U. I bought I can't remember whether it's 100 gigabytes or 1,000 gigabytes.
It's 500.
It's 500, yeah. All right. Yeah, you helped me buy it. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Shows how technical I am. So 500 gigabytes, that can take a ton of games. I like having it. First of all, because you got the free I have a white Wii U, I should add, so my hard drive is incredibly small. So when I got something like Mario Kart with the free download, I would have had to have had the external hard drive that I had to download the Wind Waker, which I got. I also take advantage of the Nintendo sales, which they seem to be doing more and more of.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And it's when Nintendo do those sales that they just ever so slightly undercut Amazon occasionally. And they're getting better and better about that. And obviously with the Virtual Console, while the Game Boy Advance games, Super Nintendo, don't take up much memory at all, you still can't even fit many of them onto the plain white Wii U by itself. So having my hard drive for that makes a huge difference. For my 3DS, it's a completely different scenario. I don't have a big enough SD card. Well, I do, but I'm not utilizing it just now. I'm using it for other stuff. I am considering loading my stuff onto a much bigger SD card, or in my case, a micro SD card, so I can move that onto the new 3DS when it comes out. But yeah, I do appreciate what you're saying about games. Certain games like Smash Brothers is a good shout for a nice game that's nice to have always on the system.
Yeah, and I think things like Animal Crossing make a lot of sense like that too. I have a digital copy of Animal Crossing on my 3DS. I didn't pay for it because it was part of a promotion that was happening last year, where you get a free game if you had a couple others. I think Luigi's Mansion, Donkey Kong, and I got Animal Crossing as a bonus. And, that's a great thing to have there because it is the sort of game that you want to have with you at all times because it is so time sensitive. So, it makes sense for stuff like that. But you don't necessarily need to dive into digital this generation. I don't think there has been a good enough reason for people to do so. Really, the only platform it makes sense on is the PC. And at this point, you can't really go out and find physical copies that easily on PC anyway because everything is so focused on the digital. But with things the way they stand on Nintendo platforms, especially with their account system, I do want to bring this up as well because this is something that is much better dealt with by the other companies. Nintendo's account system right now ties your games to a system, and it means that if you buy a new system, you can't just log in there on your account and download them because the licenses are tied to that actual physical hardware. And so, for example, if you lose your 3DS, you are in a really tough situation because you have to essentially contact Nintendo yourself, get them to find out through your account what you had, and if you do get a new 3DS, then they will manually do it themselves. There's no way for you to do it personally. And, I've heard stories, Dan Reichert of Giant Bomb was robbed and he lost his Wii U. Johnny Metz of RFN had the flood and a lot of his consoles went. And, the rigmarole that you have to go to get things back digitally these days from Nintendo is just a little bit too much of a pain. And it could even be something that you're not able to do. So that's something I would definitely warn against.
When you were saying that you can basically cope without going digital with Nintendo consoles, if you're someone like me who doesn't own a PC, I would argue that there's a lot of indie games that have come out this year. We were just talking about Shovel Knight potentially being a game of the year. So if you're in my position and only own Nintendo consoles, you're gonna have to either upgrade your SD card or get a hard drive. I mean, Shovel Knight's not a very big game potentially, but
right, but 20 or 30 Shovel Knights will mount up to something.
Another Trine 2 like I was playing earlier this year. Games like that if you're a Nintendo fan and don't own a PC, then you might still want to play them. They're great games. They're doing really well on the eShop charts. So
yeah,
I mean, obviously a lot of casual gamers those games won't appeal to. So I can see why owning a Nintendo system, you're pretty safe with just physical copies of games. But at least in my situation, I'm really loving my hard drive, and I've put a lot of games on there.
Yeah, and I mean, you took advantage of the Assassin's Creed deal as well. That was £10 on the eShop, which is an incredible deal.
That was an incredible Ubisoft sale. I mean, I came really close to buying Rayman Legends before you reminded me. Oh wait, I've just got the disc value. I can just lend it to you. So I thought,
right. And I think that's an interesting point to bring up as well, is the idea of lending games. This was a huge thing last year with the PS4 and Xbox One and the whole Microsoft just ridiculous catastrophe that happened. Is if everything is digital, there is no sharing of games. If I had Rayman Legends digitally on my Wii U, I couldn't give Bally the disc because it doesn't exist in that way. But at this juncture, I can lend it to him, and he can get to experience the thing on his own. So that's definitely another thing to keep in mind. When it comes to physical and digital, and whether you're kind of sharing games around with friends. So
yeah, and I just downloaded Tropical Freeze as part of a Nintendo sale, and I might think that's a great game, and I can't lend that to you. So maybe I should have thought about investing the extra. It would have been like an extra £4 or £5, I think, to get the Amazon version, and then I could have lent it to you afterwards. But I don't know. It feels like we're at a time where it's in a really inefficient. In Nintendo's case, it feels like a really inefficient halfway point, and I'd way prefer to be wholly on one side or the other, just because I quite like that consistency.
Yeah.
And it's a bit weird how I've got a lot of my backlog digitally and a lot of it just sitting in discs on my shelf behind me. It's a bit strange. So
Right, you're kind of straddling the line right
Yeah.
now. We're neither in one pool nor the other. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. He does kind of mention, the new 3DS and whether it would be a good idea to start going digitally there. I'm kind of curious as to how they're going to approach new 3DS in terms of, the system and their account system, whether they're going to make any steps forward with it or not. Honestly, I would just kind of wait and feel it out and see what they're doing with it before deciding one way or another. But it's certainly a thing that could be possible, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I would say that, getting a large SD card is certainly a much cheaper proposition than, for example, a hard drive on Wii U. I have a 32 gig SD card in my 3DS, and I know that that's going to serve me for a while. Like, I have Phoenix Wright Dual Destinies, I've got Animal Crossing on there, bunch of, Virtual Console and Ambassador games, and I'm still nowhere near the capacity, so... Yeah. If I would say that if you are going on a handheld, then just having a large SD card is great. Just for everything digital, not just retail stuff. So it's pretty.
I mean, I just sunk 19.5 hours into Link's Awakening, and I think that game is like 56 megabytes.
Yeah,
or something ridiculously small.
Be
and
tiny.
You just think like. It's crazy how it's all just put in perspective. Or my Assassin's Creed 4 download was like 17 gigabytes. And I've played about the same amount of time, just a few hours more maybe. It's just crazy how storage has just become such an issue digitally.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's a good time to call it for our emails. Thank you once again, everyone, for sending those in. We will need some more, however, so you can hit us up at our email address, which Bally shall tell you about right now.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
And we look forward to hearing more from you and from some more new people. We had some new listeners writing in this time, so it's great stuff, and we look forward to more of that. So we are going to take a break, but join us again because we
feeling musical.
I'm ready to rock and roll, Bally. We're going to return to good old Jukebox segment. So don't go anywhere. We shall be right back. Alright everyone, welcome back to the third and final segment of our show, and this week sees the return of a segment that we said we would return to, so here we are. It's the Jukebox, and I am going to now hand over the hosting duties to Bally, because he is in charge.
Oh boy,
here.
responsibilities. Right, Here we go. Well, okay, so I laid down the gauntlet last time, NBZ.
You did.
Are you ready for our first song?
Before we start, do you want to explain what we're
Oh
actually
yeah,
doing
that's
for
a good
people,
point.
for people who haven't
There will
listened
be some
before?
people who don't know what we're talking about. So, I'm going to play a song from a video game to NBZ, and the aim of the game is he has to guess what game that song is from. Now, I scored a big whopping 5 out of 5 last time, and now I've got 5 brand new songs lined up from video games that NBZ has definitely played, because I looked at his backloggery and got these games. And
very good.
Right, yeah. So these are games he's played, and is there any more I need to say, NBZ?
You could tell the listeners to feel free to play along at
Yeah,
home.
play along. Score at home. Send your answers to nyppquestions@gmail.com. Tell us how you did.
You can also tweet us. You can tweet us.
And
your
tweet
answers.
us. We will tell you our handles later. But for now, NBZ, are you ready for song number 1?
Let's listen. Well, Bally, that was an interesting choice. Really had me
Good.
going at the beginning. It was good. It's a good song. It's an enjoyable one.
Quite a long intro, so yeah, you did seem a bit flummoxed by the intro.
Right, there's a lot of kind of instrumentation going, there's a lot of build-up happening. When it hit, like, the main kind of melodic center of that song, I did get it. It kind of hit me instantly. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is it. But I was thinking, like, at the beginning, it gave me, like, a Donkey Kong Jungle Beat kind of vibe going on. I was thinking it was something around there. But I believe there are two possibilities here, and I'm going to go with the one which makes the most sense. Is this Rayman Legends?
Yes, correct.
Excellent. I was going to, my other option was Rayman Origins, but obviously that wasn't released on Nintendo platforms, so...
yeah, I could... That would have been a bit harsh, maybe, I don't know, but you certainly have played both. That song is called Castle Invaded, I think. So
okay, interesting. Yeah. Very good.
Well done.
Rayman Legends is a great game. It's a really fun 2D platformer, and it's also very notable for its music because it has those very specific music levels in it, right? Where like there's Black Betty, which is the kind of the starter one. It has an Eye of the Tiger, like Spanish version of Eye of the Tiger, and those levels are really cool because you're basically platforming to the music. You know, when the drum beats happen and you're jumping and you're like sliding and it all works in sync. It's like a symphony, I guess, of platforming and music. Works really
definitely a game I've not played, but definitely one I want to try. And you quite handily have the disc, so I could nab that off you.
You could do
at some point. Although I am quite bogged down in 2D platformers right now, so.
Well, I'll tell you that Rayman does stand out from the crowd as far as those go. I think that it would be a bit of a breath of fresh air for you. He controls very differently to kind of your traditional platforming characters, and just the way the levels are set up and the kind of the stuff that they do, and the art style is just gorgeous, man. This game, it's a really beautiful game. So yeah, I think that despite the fact you've played quite a few recently, it still would hit the mark, no doubt.
Definitely on my to-do list.
Awesome.
Well, we're 1 out of 1.
All right.
NYPPQuestions, are you ready?
All right, not too
for
bad.
Song number 2.
I am. Let's take a crack.
Right, let's listen. Really?
Wow.
I actually thought this was... Oh, I won't say anything. I'll wait until you've got an answer.
Okay, so I don't have any answer for this
Really?
whatsoever. There was a point in the song where something almost triggered for me, but it didn't follow through. And okay, so I'm thinking about like the system this would be on. I was starting to think like it's probably something 8-bit. It's probably something, classic, right? But then it started, a lot of the instrumentation in there was starting to get a bit complex and a lot more nuanced and yeah, I was like, okay, so probably it feels like some sort of retro modern game, and that's kind of where I am with it. I feel like I need some sort of hint here to get me going. Is there anything, any tidbit you can drop, Bally, to maybe
it
put
certainly
me on a path?
is you could argue a retro modern game.
That really helps. Thanks. Just confirm my own thoughts, Bally. God, let me think. Is there anything that I can get?
How about this? It's a game I've played. Or
What?
shall I keep going?
What? How is this helping?
It's a game we've played together.
You're confusing me even more at this
Okay.
point. I don't even know. Bally, look, I'm just going to take the hit. I'm going to be wrong.
You're going to take the hit. You see, Okay, so the answer is... You ready for the answer? You don't want to guess, right?
I'm ready.
The answer is Nintendo Land. This is the octopus
Oh,
dance.
totally should have guessed that.
I thought this was a bit of a softball, personally.
I did. Okay, so the
You made
reason
me
that
worried for
isn't-
the other ones I've chosen now.
The reason that isn't is because the Octopus game is one of the least played games of
That
my
is
copy of
true.
Nintendo Land.
That
For
is
me,
true.
the soundtrack of Nintendo Land is the main menu and the DK Crash Course. If you give me DK Crash Course, I'd have been in there like a bullet. But
that's just too
you had to
easy.
make it hard. You had to make it hard for me.
The
Bally.
reason I chose this was that the whole point of the game is about the song and the speed of the song. And on the segment we just listened to, it does actually speed up, and then it has that section of between the two segments where you have like a little breather.
That's what that was.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I thought put it all together, and he's got a chance of getting it. But anyway, that was
really was on the tip of my tongue as well. Nintendo Land was it crossed my mind, and then it kind of went out again.
I mean, I did want to maybe use one of the themes from something like Crash Course or Zelda or Metroid, but then I would have thought that you might have fallen for those individual games.
Right, yeah.
And because with our format, we're only listening to a single song, you might have, but I don't know.
All right.
Anyway,
well, it's definitely
this is a first. This is a
it's
first.
It's Nintendo Land. Let's talk about the music in Nintendo Land. I think it's pretty good. I think it's got that feel about it, especially the main menu music for Nintendo Land. It very much has like the eShop music, Wii menu music feel to it. Kind of goes along with that vibe, and I'm a big fan of that stuff. I think
really
that stuff is
great music in this game, and so many fresh remixes for all the individual games, from Pikmin to Metroid to Zelda. It's all got the main themes of those franchises in there, and they've not just ripped the song directly, they've genuinely given it some oomph and remixed it. And you're right, the original music in Nintendo Land, like the menus, the startup music before the game's even begun, it's all really, really well mastered.
Yeah, no doubt it is. Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, I tell you what, you could have given me Mario Chase, could have given me the Luigi's Mansion, I would have been in there like a bullet, but the Octopus game, man, that's a toughie. But yeah, it was a good choice. It was a good choice. A very fun song. All right, excellent stuff, Bally. How about you try and destroy my my streak even more with a third song?
Okay,
let's
here
go
we
ahead.
go, song number 3.
Bally, you're a sneaky bastard, I tell you what.
You've seen right through me. I
So this song began, I was like, that's weird. He's just given me like the easiest song in history. And then it did a weird thing where it wasn't that song, and I was like, okay, all right. Well, there's only one other thing it could be then, and then the fidelity was definitely not as high as what you would expect from the system that song originally comes on. Mm-hmm. So obviously, my first thought was Wind Waker, right?
Yeah.
Wind Waker's the Great Sea, or whatever it's called. But clearly, it has to be Phantom Hourglass.
Yes, this is Phantom Hourglass, and the theme tune is still called The Great Sea, although, of course, it is a Phantom Hourglass take on the Great
Right,
Sea.
it's a remix of that.
Yeah,
It definitely
and-
seems. I don't think I've heard that in quite a long time. It's not really
Yeah.
familiar to my ears, but it's a nice kind of deviation, I feel.
Like, I
on that
had my
tune.
issues with Phantom Hourglass, but the music was definitely not one of them. I really enjoyed the remixes on that from Wind Waker, and just obviously Wind Waker is my favorite game, and to remix all the songs from that I thought worked really well in the game. But yeah, glad you saw right through my dastardly plan, because I thought, let's get something from a Zelda game. What could I get? And then I don't know, I thought of this for some reason.
Yeah, well, Phantom Hourglass is definitely a flawed game, but I think it is a lot of fun still, and that music does lend itself because it is essentially the same kind of areas you're going through. You are still riding across the sea, and it's pretty impressive as a DS game that was able to pull off that kind of scope. It may not look the greatest, but it worked for the aesthetic that it was trying for, and I'm a fan of what it was doing. So yeah. Phantom Hourglass is great. Like it.
Was there a brief period of time between the start of the song, which is so Wind Waker, and the trumpets coming in, where you were kind of like, I'm stuck. What's happened? Like, and then you realize, oh wait, okay, there's Phantom Hourglass. Or was it very seamless?
Yeah, I mean, it was like maybe the splittest of seconds, but then it was like, yeah, I mean, this is obviously Wind Waker, but it's obviously not Wind Waker. So what is obviously Wind Waker, but is obviously not Wind Waker? There's only one game, and it's, of course, Phantom Hourglass. So yeah, made a lot of sense. I think the Phantom Hourglass made people angry for some people with the touchscreen controls and everything, but yeah, as you said, you can't really dispute the music. It's still top-notch stuff, as Zelda always is. So
excellent.
All right. Well, Bally, I think
on
that
to song 4.
It's time to go on to the 4th edition here. So let's take a listen. It's a very
Do you want to kill
somber-
yourself yet?
It's a very somber tune, isn't it? It's a
Quite.
very kind of not calming. That's not really the word for it, is it? It's a very kind of melancholic song there. This is not bringing anything in particular to mind for me. It does kind of have a JRPG feel to it. It seems like the sort of 16-bit JRPG kind of low point in the game song, or in a dungeon, or even a little bit of a Metroid-y element coming in there. So it may have that as well. So I'm kind of trying to think here and pull straws as to where this comes from. It does seem, yeah, it definitely seems to be either GBA or Super Nintendo is what I'm, picking through. Any kind of hint that you can lead me on here, Bally? Once again,
I love remaining silent and seeing what you're gonna go for.
It's not fun to remain silent, Bally. Radio Trivia, they have a hint question to help people out.
Okay, well, the more we describe the nature of the song, the closer I feel we get to the game you're looking for.
Wow, okay.
Because you were saying like it's sort of creepy, and then you were saying it was eerie, and I feel like the more you go into words like that, you get closer and closer to to what this game is known for.
Well, interesting. Dark and creepy and
But
eerie.
I really don't want to go further than that.
No, I mean, it's good to, lead me into myself.
Middle of nowhere.
Look like an idiot. I'm just trying to think, in terms of those sort of games, Nintendo games, there aren't many that kind of are very creepy and scary and disturbing and weird, and I don't really play that many of them. And I think the closest I can come to is something like a Super Metroid or something along those lines. And I'm not sure. I'm going to say Super Metroid, and I'm probably wrong, but it's the best guess I have right now.
Is that your final answer?
It is, Bally. How about you reveal it?
Correct!
Wow!
It is
all right.
Super Metroid. That is the Meridia theme.
Oh, it is as well.
Yeah.
Now I think about it, yeah, it is.
I
it's
I
Meridia.
thought once we were describing it and you were saying it was so eerie and then sort of linking Nintendo to eerie, I was like, oh, Metroid, you're so on it, you're so on it. So, yeah, great guess.
Yeah, well, we both completed Super Metroid for the first time this year.
Yeah.
So it should have been more in my mind. Although, to be honest, when I was playing through it, I did have the sound off a lot of the time.
Oh, really? It all comes out now.
Right, the first time I played through it, I didn't, because I'd played through a majority of the game on the Wii Virtual Console, and I could never get past Ridley. But this time I just went from the beginning and went for it. And yeah, now that you mention it, is the Meridia song that does.
I went for
bring it back
sort
now.
of the most not the most obscure, but not one of the main songs. I wanted something a bit more interesting or eerie, and there's not a whole lot of number of notes played in that song. It's very sparse and
sure, it's very downbeat, definitely.
Very downbeat. So yeah,
I think that encapsulates quite a lot of the feel of this series and this game. Though Super Metroid definitely known for some of its more up tempo tunes, such as Ridley's Hideout, which is probably our favorite.
yeah,
I would say
exactly. And there's so many
song.
areas of the game. I think the very first area of the game, I seem to remember that there's hardly any music, if any at all.
Yeah, it's much more atmosphere.
There's a lot of just sound effects at times.
Yeah, kind of sounds going on.
Yeah, like
and whistles and beeps.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it was a good choice, Bally, definitely, and had me squirming there trying to figure it out. But I'm really happy I actually did, because
great.
Managed to kind of work my ideas out.
I'm sure obscure Metroid songs will become a theme of this segment.
Oh dear, we're gonna try and trip each other over, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that we are going to move on to our last song. So let's take a listen.
Song 5.
Bally, you are out for my blood today, I tell you.
Yeah, okay, right. This is tough.
This is tough, yeah. So this is very chirpy. It's very kind of light and very old school. So I'm jumping between. I'm thinking more Game Boy. Honestly, it sounds more like Game Boy cheeps and chirps than NES. If I'm going to be honest, that seems to be the line that I'm going down. Definitely something platformy. I feel something that makes sense there. And yeah, it's a tough one. That's not something that sticks out to me as a memorable song in any way. So
Would you like
so
a hint?
yeah, totally, Bali. How
So
about a hint?
it's if you listen carefully, there's not it, there's plenty of notes in there that are actually quite modern sounds, and I think that
Okay.
this track is trying to sound quite retro when
Deliberately.
deliberately.
What are you doing to me? Oh man. So so then we're kind of looking along the lines of like an eShop title, some kind of indie, more
It's a Nintendo
interesting.
game.
Okay. Oh jeez. It's a Nintendo game. This is you're a bastard. Bella. You are a
I hope you've
bastard.
not been playing this game with sound off.
I look, sometimes that happens, and it's not much I can do. Bally, I really don't have a clue. I am going to have to just let you take it away.
So, in the same way on the last song, the more words you used to describe it, I felt the closer you'd get. I think you can apply that to this song as well. So, it's chirpy.
Yeah,
It's not an ancient game. I'll reveal it's on the DS.
the DS. Okay.
You any
No.
closer? Okay.
Wait. Okay, let me just throw out some random things. Kirby's Canvas Curse. Yoshi's Touch and Go.
Do you want me to say when
Uh,
it's right or
I don't know. All right, let's go Kirby's Canvas Curse. That makes the most sense.
is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Correct.
Oh my
This
god!
is Kirby.
What is up with that? Jeez.
Kirby and the Canvas Curse, and this is Frozen Fantasy.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I'll admit that is quite obscure.
That was really fucking harsh, Bally.
Yeah,
Come
that
on.
I see. I looked back on my first four and I thought he's gonna get all four of those pimps. I need to throw in like a really dastardly one, like just an extra thing. But I wasn't predicting the issues with the octopus dance. You see,
The octopus dance threw me for a loop. I'll tell you.
yeah. So, but yeah, and it was mean of me to go for quite an obscure song in a specific world in that game when there's I think like 8 worlds, for example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I was
I mean,
hoping you'd. I don't know. I was hoping you'd work out that they're all. It was kind of cold
right?
sounding and
Right.
like
It does definitely have a little bit of a tinker about it,
it's
certainly.
got a winter feel to it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, Kirby Canvas Curse. I did, as I've mentioned before, play through it in a weekend back when I was like 14, 15, or however old I was.
Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh.
And I guess I do remember listening to the music. I did actually play through it again quite recently, and I don't recall like listening to it that much. It is for me one of those games that works well with podcasts because it is just a simple platformer. The sounds aren't really necessary. If I was to have it on, I'd have it at a kind of a lower volume. So the music hasn't really stuck out to me. Do you remember much of the music of Canvas Curse in general?
Yeah, I remember the style more so than the specific songs.
Right, no
Like
individual ones stick out really.
yeah, I could pretend to myself that I would have gotten that, but I probably wouldn't have. But I almost always play games with the volume on, especially if it's my first run through a game. It'll always have the sound on.
Yeah,
For me
definitely.
personally.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, Canvas Curse is a great game. I'm dead excited for the bloody name I keep
Rainbow
forgetting.
Curse
Rainbow
Valley.
Curse. Wow,
It
I
is
just
you're
can't.
cursed
I
not knowing the
my
Rainbow
curse of the rainbows is that I can't remember Rainbow Curse. Like it's just.
Yeah,
Oh, but anyway.
awesome. Well, looks like I somehow managed to scrounge 4 out of 5 there, Bally. I'm
4 out of 5.
not
Good
quite sure
effort.
how I did, but it somehow happened. So there we go. Of course, listeners, you can let us know how you did in this competition, this trivia-based, music-based thingamy that we do called the Jukebox. You can tweet at us. Bally, what is your Twitter?
My Twitter is at Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91. That is also my name on the Miiverse. I was posting plenty about Link's Awakening. I guess now I'm going to move on to Super Mario World, so I should be posting a bit about that.
Excellent. And you can tweet me as well. I'm at Lordnbz. I'm also Lordnbz on Miiverse, and you will see some pictures of Bayonetta in compromising positions on my Miiverse page, most likely. So you can go and check those out if you are so inclined. In any case, I think that we are pretty much going to close out the show. It's been a fun one. It's been some good stuff. So
I think I'm going to be in the hot seat next time for the Jukebox as well.
Oh, look, Bally. After this,
it's going to be revenge, is it? Oh,
it's
God.
revenge. It's revenge of the Jukebox. Just you wait.
Dear.
We'll be back for some difficult picks, and I hope you guys will look forward to that. But that is going to be us for now. Thank you very much for listening. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. That's a great thing to do. We're there all the time. It's a good place to listen to us, and I hope you do that. But that is going to be it. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time with another episode of this. Until then, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. The musical interludes used in today's show were Tomorrow Is Mine from Bayonetta 2, copyright 2014, Sega, Nintendo, and Platinum Games, and Telltale Heights from The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, copyright 1993, Nintendo.
Me too.
Me too, D2. R2, me too.
You 3PO.
Nope. You tried. Nope. Not having that one. That's not. Nope.
Darth Vader. You know, like me and you, and then they.
Really?
I thought
really?
It was quite good.
You think I can speak German? You think I know German?
No, I wasn't speaking German.
Isn't Vader a German word?
Is it?
I swear Vader is a German word.
Oh, Vader.
Yeah.
That's.
Darth Father. Ah, spoilers.
I'd never worked that out before.
Did you not know that? Wow.
No.
Right. Well,
And it's not Vader, it's like Vater.
Farter.
It is Vater.
You're a farter. You smell. I don't like your smell.